Good afternoon. I'm your host, Steve Bassnett, and I would like to welcome everyone on behalf of CANASA and Security Canada to our weekly online learning session. I would like to say a special thank you to Axis Communications for their support and for sponsoring today's session. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Rodrigo N. Castillo, Business Development Manager, Audio for Axis Canada. Rodrigo joined Axis in 2019 to educate and position Axis Network Audio in the security and audio industries after establishing his expertise in the IT and security industries. He has worked in the higher education sector as a technology and business consultant and with security manufacturers providing technology solutions for small, medium, and large organizations in the Americas. Feel free to type any questions you may have during the session into the chat window, and Rodrigo will respond during the Q&A portion, roughly 20 minutes from now. I'll now turn the session over to Rodrigo. Welcome and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Steve. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And today we're going to be talking about the role of audio in security systems. Specifically, we're going to be talking about network audio and from a layer security system approach. I'm going to start by giving a little bit of background on what is the concept of layer security. And then we're going to be talking about what are the different applications for network audio. Then we're going to talk about some examples on where audio can be implemented in a security system to improve the results and the outcomes that you're going to get with security systems. So when it comes to a layer security system, the concept of a layer security system approach is that no one combination of methods is going to be effective against every single security threat. So by having multiple layers and having each of those layers different combinations of elements that can help to increase the probability of a more effective system depending on the type of threat, that is going to help our security systems. Now, and here when we're talking about these methods, we're not only talking about the technology, we're also talking about having the right people, having the right procedures, and as well having the right equipment or technology in place. All the combination of these elements will create a better security system. Now, the result is that by having these different methods and different ways on how to protect our assets, we're going to have a better security system. And if it comes to a perpetrator going through these different layers of security, they're also going to realize that this is a better security system that they have probably faced before. And the expectation as well will be that at some point they could probably abandon the idea to continue breaking into these security system. And well, that will also create a more robust perception of a security system. So today we're going to be talking about, just to get you a better sense on how audio can be implemented, we're going to be talking about a 3-layer security system. But really, the layers of security will really depend on the application, on the requirements for that specific project. But for today, we're going to be covering those 3 layers of security. So before I get into that, I would like to mention when we are talking about audio in this today's presentation, we're referring, number one, about a solution that is fully IP. And we're going to go into the details of what are the benefits when it comes to IP audio. But when it comes to the applications, one of the applications and uses for audio will be audio for security. And in here, the idea of using audio as part of a security system is, number one, to have a faster response when an incident happens. So rather than waiting for something to happen, or if the response time takes longer because probably we need to send someone on site, then by then probably something else has happened already. So the idea of having audio at the moment that an incident is taking place is going to help us twofold. Number one, having that faster response is going to reduce the number of incidents that actually escalate. And number two, we are going to have a better way on how to protect our assets. When it comes to safety, audio also plays a very important role in here, because now audio is going to help us to protect people that are inside of the premises, inside of these areas. And at the same time, we're going to be able to keep them informed, keep them directed, give them some type of communication as well as part of this whole audio system. Finally, when it comes to operations, in here, the idea behind audio for operations is that the organizations can have a better way on how to manage their human resources. Again, coming back to my example, if there is an incident happening, rather than sending a person on site, it's possible that now with having audio installed on those sites is going to be able to communicate a message that is going to be effective, or in some cases, even having a two-way conversation. So now let's talk about what are the different places and areas in which audio can be implemented for these different systems. So in layer one, we're going to be talking about the perimeter. So we're going to be covering from the outside, and we start coming inside of this security example. Now, the idea of audio in these cases is to be proactive. As I mentioned before, rather than waiting for someone to report an incident that already happened, or waiting for a person to be on site, by having audio, we're going to be able to communicate a message right there when something is being detected. Now, this could be a live feed, and probably we have a monitoring station. And if the person sees some suspicious activity, at that time is when the action is going to start. And a way to do that is by broadcasting a message directly on site. How are we going to do that? We're going to have devices, network audio devices installed around the perimeter to cover with sound these areas. Now, the effect of audio on people when we're talking about audio for security is very important, because we can have sounds, definitely, right? We can have alarm sounds or those other types of sounds. However, when we have a spoken message, we can have a more specific way of communication. We can refer specifically to specific details of the person that we are seeing on video. We can also provide some additional information, and probably we can even give what are the consequences if that person continues doing what they are doing. And the results that we have seen by seeing customers implementing these type of technologies and complement to the security system in monitoring stations is that the effect on people is immediately they react to that message. They understand, they have a way to realize that there is a more robust security system, and in a good number of those situations, they abandon the whatever they're doing. They just don't continue, because they can see that there is going to be some action taking place after that message. Maybe authorities are already on their way. Maybe there is something else that is happening. So in here, the important part is that we can have the video surveillance cameras, we can have the access control, but we can tie all these different technologies to provide that active, proactive response with audio. Now, we're also going to be able to reduce the number of incidents that actually happen by using audio. And in some cases, we may not have someone that is actively looking at those cameras, or maybe there are so many different video surveillance cameras that it's hard to keep track of all the things that are happening. But one of the things that we can assist all this process with is by using some type of sensor. And probably one of the common ones that we see implemented is by using video cameras with video analytics. And this could be video analytics that could probably be running inside of the cameras, what we call edge analytics. And a good example of this could be just defining a perimeter around the area. And if someone crosses that perimeter, that could be a way to alert the security department that something is happening here. They can assess the situation and then respond accordingly. Now, this as well can be a combination of tying not only one camera, but also having another camera. Could be a PTZ that is going to be tracking the activity that is happening. Now, some of these analytics could respond well in certain environments, but in some others can create some false alarms. And for that, we also have now more advanced analytics. And these new advanced analytics can also if we're talking about people or vehicles, if we want to filter one or the other and have a better way to respond to certain situations and get the notifications that we need to have. Now, I just mentioned video cameras in this example, but really any other type of sensor can also be a way to be aware of the situation that is happening. Could probably be a sensor on a fence, could also be a motion sensor, could be other types of sensors that can, as well as a way to identify important events that are happening. Now, if we keep moving on from the perimeter away, a next level of the next layer, we'll be talking about the property grounds. And in here, the idea again, if someone has crossed the perimeter and now they are in the property grounds, what do we do once this event is being detected? So in here, the main idea of audio awareness of something that is happening. So it could be that the event has been detected by, again, one of these sensors. This notification gets sent out to the security department, and now the security department can respond to that. And a way to do that is, again, broadcasting a message. Now, the message doesn't necessarily need to be live message, could also be a pre-recorded message. And here's an example of one of these technologies that we can also use in combination with network audio. And this is a radar. And radars are really good when it comes to certain weather conditions or certain lighting conditions in which it's very challenging for a video surveillance camera to capture those incidents. So the radar could be sensing the environment. In this case, we see that we have two to cover 360 degrees on the roof of this building. And if something is detected, well, then the network audio can create a message, can play a message automatically. Now, the important thing in here with sensors, with this type of sensors, is that we can define as well an area that is critical. We can detect all types of events, but only if that vehicle or person crosses that fence that we have defined, then cameras can start recording. If you have PTZ cameras, can also move into that area. The audio can start playing a message. So here's a combination of different technologies on how to solve that challenge of detecting those situations and what to do after that. Now, another purpose or another a reason for using audio in the property grounds could also be to keep people informed of a situation. Probably a situation has been detected in the property grounds, could be something as critical as something like an active shooter situation. So having people informed of how these events are progressing or what areas to avoid, that could also be really important. And again, this could be a combination of using live messages, but can also be part of a protocol that can trigger some pre-recorded messages depending on the situation. And finally, another way on how audio can be used in the property grounds is by communicating messages to probably people that is working in that area. And those messages need to be clear, need to be understandable by the person that is on the other end. And that is one of the benefits of using IP audio. And we'll talk about that in more detail in a minute. But another way to do, to use the implementation of network audio is by having a talk back. Maybe there is a need to confirm certain information, or maybe there is a need to validate something that is happening on the property grounds. So the person on the other end can also talk back, and the person in the monitoring station receive all that information, and everything handled under the same platform that they are using for access control or video cameras or radars or any other technologies that are part of the security system. Now, if we continue moving into these property grounds, well, people is one of those things that we can detect, or vehicles, but there could also be other things that are happening and coming on the property grounds. And something recently we've also seen a lot of interest in terms of detecting other objects, probably drones that are in the area, right? So there are other technologies that we can also put into play in combination with all these. And again, audio can be part of all that solution to complement the security system. Now, if we keep moving after the property grounds, now we'll be talking about what is happening in the building itself. If we're talking about the assets that we
Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. Looks like we're having some technical difficulties. I apologize. For those who can't stick around for the full presentation, we'll make sure to get a copy out to you if you agreed to that in the sign-up sheet. And if you're not able to, just shoot me an email and we'll make sure we get you a copy. For those who are able to hold on, let me just see if we can get Rodrigo back. Thank you. Welcome back, sir.
Sorry, I apologize. I believe my computer stopped working.
No problem. I figured you were streaming some videos and
Yeah. So so I'll continue. So when it comes to using network audio, we can also use them as a sensor. And this means that every single device now is going to be able to pick up the signals of the environment to detect some sound patterns. And this is what we call audio analytics. And just in here on this example, one of the things that can be done with video, we can only see people moving and doing things, but with audio, we are going to be able to detect patterns like aggression detection. So research shows that before any violent act occurs, it always starts with verbal aggression. So by detecting these situations, we're going to be able to trigger those events back into the security department. The security department now can take action and do an early intervention as well. We have had successes using these type of solutions in multiple types of projects in education, in healthcare, in any area in which there is access from public as well. When it comes to informing as well, there are some messages that can be relevant for an organization inside of the premises, and that could also be something that can be scheduled. It doesn't have to be live, but it can be used on a regular basis for keeping visitors and staff informed or aware of certain rules and regulations. When it comes to compliance as well, that is something that can also be part of that solution, reducing the number of incidents, probably accidents even. So if we take, for example, in this case, a warehouse where leaving something in the wrong place can lead to some injuries, well, that can also be another reason for using the video surveillance cameras, running analytics, and by using audio, now we're going to be able to output some messages when something that has been detected is occurring, is happening. At the same time, that can also be a notification to the proper the department to keep looking into it if there is something else that they need to do. Now, overall, audio can be also used by other departments, can also be used as a way to guide, as a way to instruct, as a way to communicate. Different stakeholders inside of the organization can take advantage of that. Security department can use it when it's needed and can override certain of those messages if it's needed because of the priorities. But at the same time, this can also be a solution that can be leveraged by others inside of the organization. So what are the benefits then of using a network audio solution versus a traditional analog audio solution? Well, number one is with traditional analog audio solutions, we have lots of equipment, different cables, but at the end of the day, everything that goes out of the speakers get communicated using a dedicated infrastructure and a speaker cable. If anything fails when it comes to the audio out, it's really hard to determine which speaker is failing, and sometimes even it's just a chain reaction. After some of these devices fail or the cable fails, anything connected after that is also going to fail. When we're talking about network audio, we're referring to a device that gets connected into the existing IP network. Everything that before was residing on a rack now is inside of every single device. And if one of these fail, it's only going to affect that one device, not the whole security system or the whole audio system. When we talk about the quality of the audio, having IP audio will provide a higher quality because everything travels in digital all the way to the device compared to traditional analog audio, even the hybrid audio, which connects the amplifiers into the IP network. Anything after that still is analog, and the quality can get degraded by having any noise coming from external sources. When it comes to installation and configuration as well, since this is another IoT device, installation is very similar to having a video surveillance camera or having a phone system or having a computer. It's going to use the same network cable. It's going to get connected into the same type of infrastructure. Configuration also includes security. So depending on the installation and the setting, there are also features to increase the security of these systems and these devices. And depending on the needs, there are also going to be options in there for systems to be integrated into other systems if needed. Now, when it comes to distributing audio in different areas, this is going to be a very easy way to do that because everything is digital and every single device is connected on its own. So if those zones or groups of speakers working together need to be rearranged, it's going to be pretty easy. As I mentioned before, additional applications can run inside of these devices, increasing the capabilities and increasing the functionality of these systems. When it comes to communication with other systems, there is a variety of options to communicate with different video management platforms, notification systems, and even other applications like playing background music in these devices. One of the things that is also very important for some projects and some applications is to know whether or not these devices are working. And by working, I not only mean that they are connected into the network, but also that the audio coming out of these devices is the right one, it's good enough for people to understand the messages. And if anything happens on that regard, then there's a way to notify the person responsible for maintaining these devices so they can take a proactive action and not wait until something else happens and somebody reports that. Migration is a very important topic, especially when there is a lot of audio systems out there that are analog, and having a path to migrating stages from analog to IP is very important. So there are different options on how to do that and how to, in stages, start moving away from analog, getting to IP or only IP in certain areas and analog in others. And finally, these audio systems can work standalone, can be on its own. The only thing that is required is having these devices. Everything else is included. There is no need for additional equipment, or it can be part of an other system like what we talk about today about a video management system. Well, thank you so much. I hope the information that I shared today with you has been exciting, interesting for you. Here's my contact information, and I will open the floor for questions now.
Thank you, Rodrigo. That was great, and appreciate you coming back. I was getting a little panicked there, buddy. If anyone has any questions, please type them into your Q&A window now. And we have our first question. What about to integrate access audio with fire alarm systems? Can the system be used as a life safety voice evacuation?
Yeah, great question. And this is really important to mention that none of our network audio devices are compliant with evacuation and fire. So usually what happens when there is a need to communicate both systems, there is still a dedicated system for fire and evacuation. And these devices can work in parallel with that existing system. And could the integration could be something from communicating the same messages that are happening on the other system, or probably if there is something else happening, mute everything else that is happening just to make sure that the evacuation system and messaging is heard by everyone inside of the premise.
Okay, thank you. Next question, do we need amplified speakers? Or if not, what is the maximum wattage of the speakers that we can use?
Yeah, so in network audio, really every single device will have its own amplifier inside. And because these devices get power by PoE, power over Ethernet, the only thing that we need to have is a network cable and a switch that can support power over Ethernet. We have different models, and depending on the models, there is the sound pressure level that each of these models will accommodate. So just to give you an example, we have a horn speaker that is for outdoors, and we can get up to 121 dB SPL on that device. We have indoor speakers like ceiling speakers or cabinet speakers that can give us a range of 95 dBs.
Okay, thank you. Next question, can you use Axis speakers for both indoor and outdoor application?
Absolutely. You can use, we have different devices in our portfolio that can be used depending on the situation in indoor environments, in outdoor environments. We actually have one of these models that is semi-outdoor. So as long as we have some coverage from the environment, that device can work as well in those situations. So there's a variety of options in here as well. And if there is no one device that fits exactly the requirements, and sometimes that has to do with certain very specific applications, we also have another device that can connect an analog speaker directly to it, and that is an IP amplifier. So that way we can also meet requirements of very specific projects.
Great, thanks. Next up, is it possible to do live audio messages from a remote site?
Yeah, that is something that is very common. We have a lot of customers that they sometimes even have unmanned locations. So they have a central monitoring station, and from there they broadcast messages in a location that is completely in a different city and sometimes in a different province. And all that is being achieved by using either SIP, which is the standard for IP phone systems, or as well, if they have communication with a VMS platform, they could also use their VMS, and everything will travel using the network.
Okay, thank you. Next up, do we need to replace the existing audio system to use network audio?
No, it's not required. So if there is already an existing analog audio system, there is also devices that we have that we can use to communicate IP technologies with the analog audio system. And as I mentioned before, do that migration in stages. These devices get connected into the amplifiers. So if the amplifier has multiple zones, there will be a need of installing one of these devices per zone. But if it's only one zone, then it's only one device that is required. So that way there is going to be a communication between the two.
Okay, thanks. And looks like our last question. Can I use network audio with a VMS other than Axis camera station?
Yeah, we do have a number of video management partners that we work with, and they all have done different types of integration with our network audio devices. So the best way to know what is the integration level that we have with different partners is just to look at the VMS website and look at the compatibility of different devices, look for audio, and see what devices are compatible with network audio and what are the features or capabilities of that integration.
Great, thanks. Oh, I spoke too soon. We just have one more pop in, and then we'll wrap her up. Can we use speakers to play individually and as a group?
Yeah, that is another great question. And the benefit of using IP audio is that we can go as granular as one device. So we can broadcast a message in just one speaker, or we can go and broadcast a message in a group of speakers, which is called a zone, or in the whole organization if we need to do that. So there are different options in here to play either pre-recorded messages or live messages.
Great, thank you. Well, that brings us to the end of today's session. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and thank you to Rodrigo and to Axis for their support. We look forward to seeing you at Security Canada Virtual June 9 and 10. If you haven't registered yet, there are still complimentary seats available. You can register at securitycanada.com. Until then, be well.